The massive space station loomed ahead, a dark, gray fortress suspended against the burnt orange sky of Draven 9. Bastion, as it was appropriately named, was the most secure detention facility in the entire Galactic Alliance, home to the most dangerous criminals in 3 quadrants. Its imposing structure, hexagonal modules connected by reinforced corridors, was designed to intimidate even before one set foot inside. Ambassador Serena Vale gazed through the shuttle viewport, her expression betraying nothing of the anxiety bubbling beneath her calm exterior. Her reflection stared back at her, auburn hair pulled into a severe bun, emerald eyes sharp with focus, skin pale from too many hours spent in diplomatic chambers rather than under natural sunlight. The simple charcoal suit she wore was deliberately unadorned, no insignia, no medals, despite her numerous accolades for conflict resolution across 17 systems. "Ambassador, we're approaching the docking bay," the pilot announced, his voice tight with concern. "Command wants me to remind you again that this is against protocol. The Phantom Assassins are classified as maximum security detainees. No civilian access is permitted, especially not unescorted." Serena nodded without turning from the viewport. "I understand, Captain, and I appreciate your concern." She kept her voice steady, gentle yet resolute. It was the same voice that had talked down revolutionaries on Proxima Centauri, the same tone that had negotiated peace between the warring factions of Europa. "But I need to do this my way." "They're killers, ma'am," the pilot persisted. "The worst kind. The Phantoms have assassinated heads of state on 12 planets. Their leader, Cross. He personally executed the Chancellor of New Geneva while surrounded by 20 armed guards. Which is precisely why standard procedure won't work here," Serena replied, finally turning to face him. "I've studied every detail of their profiles. I know who they are, what they've done, and what they're capable of doing." The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and Serena gathered her single possession, a small, handheld device, no larger than an ancient paper notebook. The guards stationed at the airlock eyed her with a mixture of awe and apprehension as she approached. "Ambassador Vale," the senior officer acknowledged with a stiff salute. "Commander Marvek is waiting to brief you on security protocols before—" "There won't be a briefing, Lieutenant," Serena interrupted gently. "And I won't be needing an escort." The guard's eyes widened. "Ma'am, with all due respect, that's impossible. Bastion regulations explicitly forbid unauthorized personnel from—" "I'm aware of the regulations," Serena said, her voice dropping to that particular register she used when she needed to be heard, truly heard. "But I'm also aware that in approximately 73 hours, the Phantom Assassins are scheduled for transfer to the Helix Judicial Complex, where their trial will result in their certain execution." The guard shifted uncomfortably. "That's classified information." "Yes," Serena agreed with a small smile. "Just as it's classified that there are at least 4 separate factions planning rescue operations during that transfer. Operations that, according to intelligence estimates, have a 28% chance of success and will result in the deaths of approximately 57 security personnel." The color drained from the guard's face. "How did you—" "I need to see them alone, unarmed, and I need to do it now," Serena said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "Please direct me to Detention Block 13. The lieutenant's hand hovered over his communication device, clearly torn between duty and the inexplicable authority radiating from the unarmed woman before him. Finally, he pressed the comm button. "Commander Marvek, Ambassador Vale is requesting unconventional access to the Phantom detainees." There was a long pause before the commander's gruff voice came through. "Denied. Standard protocol applies. Full security detail, weapon scanners, force shields active." Serena stepped closer to the comm device. "Commander Marvek, this is Ambassador Vale. I understand your concerns, but I'm afraid I must insist. I have authorization from the Galactic Security Council for this approach. Another pause. Longer this time. The Council has no jurisdiction over Bastion security protocols. True, Serena conceded. But they do have jurisdiction over the resources allocated to Bastion, including the fusion reactor maintenance scheduled for next month. I'd hate for bureaucratic delays to affect such critical infrastructure. The silence that followed was deafening. Eventually, Commander Marvek's voice returned, noticeably tighter. Lieutenant, escort the ambassador to the observation room adjacent to Block 13. I'll meet you there. The corridor leading to Detention Block 13 seemed to stretch endlessly, its sterile white walls occasionally interrupted by reinforced security doors. With each checkpoint they passed, Serena could feel the resistance growing. Guards whispered into their comms. Technicians glanced up from monitoring stations, and security drones adjusted their scanning patterns to follow her progress. Commander Marvek was waiting at the final checkpoint, a stocky man with a permanently furrowed brow and eyes that had witnessed too many failed rehabilitation attempts. His uniform bore the scars of numerous confrontations, including a prominent burn mark across his left shoulder, the signature of a phantom energy weapon. Ambassador Vale, he greeted, without extending his hand. I've reviewed your request, and I still find it both reckless and unnecessary. The Phantoms are scheduled for lawful trial and sentencing. The system is working as intended. Serena met his gaze directly. Is it, Commander? Because from where I stand, a transfer operation with a 28% chance of catastrophic failure doesn't sound like a system working as intended. Marvek's eye twitched almost imperceptibly. Our intelligence suggests the risk is much lower. Your intelligence is incomplete, Serena replied, activating her handheld device. A holographic display materialized between them, showing intercepted communications, smuggled weapons caches, and bribed officials. There are 4 separate extraction plans in motion. Even if you neutralize 3, the 4th still has a viable chance of success. The commander's face darkened as he scanned the information. This is highly classified. How did you obtain it? The same way I obtained this, Serena said, swiping to reveal a new set of projections, casualty estimates, resource allocation for the aftermath, and political fallout scenarios. Commander, I'm not here to undermine your authority. I'm here because I believe there's another way. A way that doesn't end with your people in body bags and the Phantoms either executed or escaped. Marvek's professional facade cracked slightly, revealing the weight of responsibility he carried. And what exactly is this miraculous alternative? Voluntary surrender, Serena said simply. Complete cooperation. Information on their networks, their financiers, their training facilities. A harsh laugh escaped the commander. You expect me to believe that Cross and his killers are suddenly going to develop a conscience? These people have bathed in blood for decades. No, Serena replied calmly. I expect them to make a rational decision when presented with the full consequences of their actions. But for that to happen, I need to speak with them, alone. No guards, no weapons, no force fields. Absolutely not, Marvek snapped. They'd kill you in seconds. Serena's expression didn't change. If they wanted to kill me, Commander, they would have arranged it long before I set foot on the station. The Phantoms have agents everywhere. The fact that I'm still breathing means they're curious, at minimum. The commander studied her for a long moment, his internal conflict evident. Finally, he stepped aside. You have 15 minutes. The moment we detect any sign of distress, we're coming in with full tactical response. Thank you, Commander, Serena said, genuine appreciation in her voice. But I should warn you, what happens in that room may appear threatening. Please, trust that I know what I'm doing. Your confidence is either admirable or delusional, Marvek muttered. The observation room is equipped with emergency protocols. One word from you, and we'll flood the chamber with suppressants. Serena nodded and proceeded to the final door. As it slid open, she took a deep breath, centering herself. The weight of countless lives, both the potential victims of the phantoms and the security personnel who would die in a failed transfer, pressed upon her shoulders. But she had faced worse odds before. The peace treaty of Tau Ceti had seemed impossible until the moment it wasn't. The cell block was unlike any conventional prison. Rather than individual cells, it was a large, open chamber with various comfort amenities, plush seating areas, entertainment consoles, even a small garden space with artificial sunlight. The luxury was deliberate, part of Bastion's psychological approach to high-value detainees. Make them comfortable enough to lower their guard, to become complacent. It hadn't worked on the phantoms. 11 figures occupied the space, each one instantly recognizable from their dossiers. Despite the casual setting, they maintained tactical positioning, sight lines covered, escape routes mentally mapped. Even in detention, they functioned as a lethal unit. And at the center of it all was Cross. He sat in a high-backed chair that resembled a throne, more than prison furniture. His posture relaxed yet vigilant. Unlike the others, who wore the standard gray jumpsuits of Bastion detainees, Cross had modified his, torn sleeves revealing muscled arms covered in ritual scarification. Collar ripped open to display the infamous brand of the Shadow Academy where he had trained. His head was shaved except for a single braid that ran from his forehead to the nape of his neck, and his eyes, one natural brown, one cybernetically enhanced with a red gleaming iris, fixed on Serena the moment she entered. "The famous Ambassador Vale," he said, his voice surprisingly melodic for a man responsible for so much death. "Come to plead for our souls before execution?" The other phantoms tensed at her entrance, their hands instinctively moving to where weapons would normally be holstered. Several shifted positions, creating a loose perimeter around their leader. Serena walked forward with measured steps, stopping at what would normally be considered a safe distance in diplomatic encounters, though with assassins of this caliber, no distance was truly safe. "No, Cross," she replied evenly. "I'm not here to plead for anything. I'm here to offer you a choice." A flicker of genuine curiosity crossed his face. "A choice? How generous of the Alliance. Let me guess. Quick death or slow death? Execution or lifetime imprisonment in an isolation pod?" "Neither," Serena said. "I'm offering you life. Real life. Not just survival." A harsh laugh erupted from one of the female assassins to Cross's right. Vex, according to her file, specialist in biochemical weapons. "We've heard Alliance promises before. They turn to ash rather quickly." "This isn't an Alliance promise," Serena clarified. "This is my promise. And in 26 years of diplomatic service, I have never broken my word." "Impressive resume," Cross mocked, leaning forward slightly. "But you've never dealt with the phantoms before. We aren't politicians squabbling over territory or resources. We aren't revolutionaries with idealistic demands. We are the consequence of a corrupt system. Ambassador, the shadow cast by your precious Alliance's light." Serena nodded, acknowledging his perspective without agreeing with it. "And yet here you are, captured, detained, awaiting a transfer that will almost certainly result in your execution, unless one of the 4 extraction teams currently planning your rescue succeeds, in which case, dozens of security personnel will die, and you'll return to a life of perpetual hunting and being hunted." A subtle tension rippled through the group. Cross's expression hardened. "You seem remarkably well-informed for a diplomat." "Information is the currency of peace," Serena replied, activating her handheld device. "Just as blood is the currency of war." The holographic display flickered to life between them, but instead of classified documents or security briefs, it showed a scene of devastation, a hospital ward in ruins, bodies of medical staff and patients scattered among the debris. The timestamp indicated it was from 3 years prior. New Damascus Medical Center, Serena narrated quietly. Collateral damage from your assassination of Governor Helix. 78 civilians killed, including 26 children in the pediatric ward. Cross's face remained impassive, but several of the other phantoms shifted uncomfortably. Serena swiped to a new image, a residential tower reduced to rubble. Proxima Heights housing complex. Your target was a single Alliance intelligence officer, but your method collapsed the entire structure. 142 civilians killed. We didn't, one of the younger phantoms began, but Cross silenced him with a sharp gesture. Spare us the moral lecture, Ambassador, he said coldly. War has casualties. The Alliance's hands are hardly clean. I'm not here to compare atrocities, Serena replied, her voice remaining calm. I'm here to show you something else. She swiped again, and the hologram changed to display a different kind of scene. Projections, statistical models, future scenarios. What is this? Cross demanded, his enhanced eye scanning the data streams. This is what happens next, Serena explained. Based on current intelligence, predictive algorithms, and psychological profiles, these are the most likely outcomes of your current trajectory. The images began to play like a grim slideshow. More assassinations, more collateral damage, retaliatory strikes against suspected phantom sympathizers, innocent communities caught in the crossfire, a cascading effect of violence spreading across systems. The cycle continues, Serena said softly. More death, more justification for extreme security measures, more innocent people deciding that the only way to fight back is to embrace the methods they once abhorred. Cross's expression remained stony, but his eyes never left the projection. And you believe we care about this? About what happens after we're gone? I believe you're intelligent enough to recognize patterns, Serena responded. And I believe that somewhere, beneath all the ideology and training and justifications, you understand that this, she gestured to the images of devastation, is not what you actually wanted when you began. A tense silence fell over the room. One of the phantoms, an older man with a network of scars crisscrossing his face, spoke up. What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador? Terrius, Cross warned, but the older assassin kept his eyes on Serena. Full immunity in exchange for complete cooperation, Serena stated. Detailed information on all phantom operations, training facilities, financial backers, and methodologies. In return, you'll be relocated, not imprisoned, to a secure settlement on a resource-rich frontier world beyond Alliance space. New identities. The opportunity to build something rather than destroy it. And we're supposed to believe the Alliance would honor such an arrangement? Vex scoffed. The moment we provide the information, we'd be disposed of. The Alliance wouldn't, Serena agreed. But I've arranged for the oversight of this agreement to be handled by the Neutral Worlds Consortium. They have no stake in Alliance politics and a vested interest in ending the cycles of violence that threaten to spill into their territories. Cross rose from his seat with fluid grace, his imposing figure casting a shadow across the holographic display. The other phantoms tensed, ready to move at his command. You walk in here, unarmed and alone, he said, prowling closer to Serena. And expect us to believe that after decades of hunting us, after all the resources spent capturing us, the Alliance would simply let us walk away? Not the Alliance, Serena corrected, standing her ground as he approached. Me, my reputation, my guarantee, secured by fail-safes that would expose corruption at the highest levels of Alliance leadership if you were betrayed. Cross stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could see the intricate mechanical components in his cybernetic eye, could smell the faint metallic scent of the implants beneath his skin. And why would you risk everything? Your career, your reputation, possibly your life, for assassins like us? Serena held his gaze unflinchingly. Because I've seen where this path leads. All of us have. and I refuse to accept that it's inevitable." She swiped to the final projection. Two diverging timelines. One showed the continued escalation of violence, spreading like a cancer through the Alliance and beyond. The other showed a different path, the intelligence provided by the Phantoms leading to the dismantling of shadow operations across multiple systems. Reforms in governance sparked by exposed corruption, and gradually, painfully, a reduction in the cycles of retribution. "This isn't about saving your lives," Serena said quietly. "It's about saving thousands of others, including those who would follow in your footsteps, believing there is no alternative." Cross's hand moved with blinding speed, closing around Serena's throat, not squeezing, but positioned to do so instantly if desired. Behind him, the other Phantoms tensed, some looking toward the observation window, where security forces were undoubtedly preparing to intervene. "I could kill you before they even activate the suppressant systems," Cross said, his voice a dangerous whisper. Serena didn't flinch, didn't struggle, didn't even raise her hands defensively. Instead, she simply asked, "And what would that accomplish, Cross? Would it change the future waiting for you and your people? Would it bring back any of those you've lost?" Something flickered in his mismatched eyes, a brief, almost imperceptible moment of uncertainty. His enhanced eye whirred as it adjusted focus, scanning her face for deception. "You believe what you're saying," he stated, sounding faintly surprised. "You actually believe you can rewrite the ending to this story." "I've done it before," Serena replied calmly, despite his hand at her throat. "The water wars of Titan were considered unresolvable until they weren't. The genetic purges of New Malaysia were stopped because people on both sides finally saw the full cost of continuing." Cross's hand remained in position, but his focus had shifted to the projection still floating between them, the branching timelines, the possibilities. "Assuming I was even interested in your offer," he said slowly. "My people follow me because I've kept them alive in a universe determined to hunt them down. What would they have on this frontier world of yours?" "Purpose," Serena answered simply. "The same skills that make you lethal assassins would make you invaluable on a frontier world. Protection from raiders, training for colonists, expertise in survival. The chance to defend something instead of destroying it." Cross finally lowered his hand, taking a step back to study Serena with new consideration. He turned to look at his assembled team, reading their expressions. Some showed skepticism, others cautious interest. Tarius, the oldest, gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Show me the specific terms," Cross demanded, returning his attention to Serena. "Every detail, every guarantee, every consequence if either side breaks faith." Serena's shoulders relaxed slightly, the first indication that she had been anything less than completely composed. She adjusted her handheld device, bringing up a detailed agreement. "Full disclosure of all Phantom operations," she began, "including training facilities, financial backers, weapon suppliers, and methodologies. In exchange, transport to Helios 9, a resource-rich world beyond Alliance jurisdiction, but within consortium protection." As she spoke, the holographic display showed images of a rugged but beautiful planet. Vast forests, mountain ranges, fertile valleys. "The settlement is established but still developing. You would have considerable autonomy within a basic framework of non-aggression laws." "And our skills?" Vex asked, stepping forward. "Most of us don't know how to be anything but what we are." "You won't have to abandon your training," Serena clarified. "Only redirect it. The settlement requires protection from natural threats and occasional raiders. Your expertise would be valued, not condemned." For nearly an hour, the negotiation continued. Questions were raised, objections addressed, guarantees demanded and provided. Throughout it all, Serena maintained her composed demeanor, neither rushing nor showing signs of fatigue. This was the true art of diplomacy, not the formal ceremonies or signed documents, but the patient work of building bridges across chasms of distrust. Commander Marvek's voice eventually crackled through the communication system. Ambassador Vale, your authorized time has elapsed. Security protocols require that we end this session. Cross looked up at the ceiling where the commander's voice had emanated. Always interruptions from the authorities. Just when things get interesting. He turned back to Serena. You've made your pitch, Ambassador. Now I need to consult with my people. Serena nodded, understanding the request for what it was. Not a dismissal, but a necessary step in any negotiation of this magnitude. Of course, but there's one more thing you should see before I leave. She manipulated her device one final time, and the holographic display changed to show a secure transport vessel surrounded by escort ships. This is scheduled for 73 hours from now. Your transfer to Helix Judicial Complex. What you can't see are the 4 separate extraction teams positioning for intercept. The display zoomed out, revealing hidden ships, bribed transport crew, and security vulnerabilities. Based on current intelligence, there's a 28% chance of successful extraction. But even if you escape, the hologram shifted to show pursuit vessels, blockaded jump points, and fortified safe houses. The Alliance has already prepared contingencies. The resources committed to your recapture would be unprecedented. Cross studied the tactical projections with professional interest. They want us badly. Yes, Serena agreed. Because you represent something beyond just your actions. You've become symbols of defiance against the Alliance's authority. Your public trial and execution would send a message. And your alternative sends a different message, Cross concluded. That even the most hardened enemies can find another path. Serena inclined her head slightly. Precisely. I believe that message is more powerful and more necessary than any show of force could ever be. Commander Marvek's voice returned, more insistent. Ambassador Vale, we must insist that you exit the detention area immediately. It seems our time is up, Serena said, deactivating her device. I'll return tomorrow for your decision. As she turned to leave, Cross called after her. Ambassador. When she paused and looked back, he asked, Why are you really doing this? Not the official reason. The true one. Serena considered him for a moment before answering. Because 30 years ago, a different ambassador failed to make a similar offer to a different group of revolutionaries. The result was the Khalistan massacre and 3 decades of bloodshed that could have been avoided. I was a child on Callisto when it happened. I've spent my life ensuring it never happens again. Something shifted in Cross's expression. Recognition, perhaps, or reassessment. He gave her a slight nod, which she returned before exiting the chamber. Commander Marvek was waiting in the corridor, his face tight with controlled fury. That was extremely reckless. Ambassador, he had his hand at your throat. We were seconds away from deploying suppressants, which would have undermined everything I was trying to accomplish, Serena replied calmly. Commander, I understand your concern, but this approach requires trust, demonstrated trust to succeed. Trust? Marvek repeated incredulously. These are the phantoms. They've assassinated heads of state, bombed civilian targets, and murdered my officers. They don't deserve trust. They deserve justice. And what is justice in this case, Commander? Serena asked quietly. Execution. More bloodshed. More families destroyed on both sides? Or is justice finding a way to end the cycle, to prevent future suffering? Marvek's jaw worked silently for a moment before he responded. It's not that simple. No, Serena agreed. It never is. But we have to start somewhere. She glanced at the closed door of the detention chamber. I'll return tomorrow. In the meantime, I'd appreciate access to secure communications. I need to update certain parties on our progress. The commander nodded stiffly. I'll have a communications terminal set up in your quarters. He hesitated, then added reluctantly. For what it's worth, I've never seen anyone stand their ground with Cross like that. Most people can't even maintain eye contact. Serena offered a small smile. Fear is a natural response, Commander. The trick isn't eliminating it. It's acknowledging it, then setting it aside to do what needs to be done. As she walked away, escorted by security officers who now regarded her with a mixture of respect and wariness, Serena allowed herself to feel the tremors she had suppressed during the confrontation. Her hands shook slightly, and her heart raced with delayed adrenaline. The weight of what she was attempting pressed upon her, not just the lives of the Phantoms and the security personnel, but the potential ripple effects throughout the Alliance. In her assigned quarters, a Spartan but comfortable space befitting her diplomatic status, Serena sank onto the edge of the bed and closed her eyes. The faces of the Phantoms flashed through her mind. Not just Cross with his intimidating presence, but all of them. Vex with her skeptical intensity, Terius with his weathered face and evaluating gaze. The younger ones whose names she had memorized from dossiers, Lask, Nimara, Davin. People, not just killers, not just threats to be neutralized, but people with histories and choices and potential futures. She activated her personal communicator, a device separate from the station systems and secured with the highest diplomatic encryption. A holographic interface materialized, and she began recording her observations and assessments for her superiors in the diplomatic corps. They had entrusted her with extraordinary latitude in this mission, based on her track record of resolving seemingly impossible conflicts. But even they might balk at the promises she had made today. Initial contact established with all members of the Phantom Collective, she dictated. Preliminary terms presented and discussed. Resistance was expected, but not insurmountable. Key figure Cross displays classic indicators of disillusionment beneath the maintained facade of ideological commitment. Recommend proceeding with full implementation of Operation Watershed, including preparation of the Helios 9 settlement and consortium security arrangements. She paused, considering how much of the personal interaction to include. Diplomatic reports were meant to be objective, focused on outcomes rather than methods. But in this case, the personal dynamics were crucial to understanding the potential for success. Assessment of primary subject Cross indicates complex psychological profile consistent with previous analysis. History of personal loss has been channeled into ideological violence, but core protective instincts remain intact, particularly toward his assembled team. This represents our primary leverage point. The offer of collective relocation appeals to these protective instincts while providing honorable alternative to continued conflict. The communication system chimed, interrupting her recording. Commander Marvek's voice came through. Ambassador Vale, we're detecting unusual activity in Detention Block 13. The Phantoms appear to be engaged in some form of structured discussion or vote. Our audio surveillance is being actively blocked, but visual monitoring shows what appears to be a formal deliberation. Serena felt a flutter of hope. That's actually a positive sign. Commander, traditional Phantom protocol includes a consensus process for major strategic decisions. If they're engaging in that now, it means they're seriously considering the offer. Or planning something else entirely, Marvek replied grimly. I've doubled the security detail and activated additional countermeasures. I understand your caution, Serena said, but please ensure your personnel maintain distance. Any perceived aggression at this stage could undermine the delicate trust we're establishing. After ending the communication, Serena returned to her report, adding, Local security remains skeptical but cooperative. Commander Marvek's personal history with the Phantoms creates understandable resistance to diplomatic approaches, but his professionalism has thus far overridden emotional responses. She completed the report and transmitted it through secure channels, then turned her attention to the terms of the agreement. The basic framework had been established before her arrival at Bastion, but the details would need refinement based on today's interaction. Hours passed as she worked, adjusting provisions, strengthening guarantees, anticipating objections. When she finally allowed herself to rest, the artificial night cycle of the station was well underway. The lights dimmed to simulate evening. Sleep came fitfully. Her dreams filled with fragments of past negotiations, faces of those she had failed to save, and the haunting image of Cross's mismatched eyes, studying her, with that unsettling combination of threat and insight. Morning arrived with a chime from the station's communication system. "Ambassador Vale," Commander Marvek's voice announced. "The detainees have requested your presence. Immediately." Serena was instantly alert, years of diplomatic crises having trained her to wake fully at a moment's notice. "Have they indicated why?" "Negative," Marvek replied. "But they appear agitated. Security scanners show elevated heart rates and increased movement throughout the chamber." "I'll be there shortly," Serena said, already moving to prepare herself. She chose the same unadorned suit as before. Consistency in appearance was a subtle but important signal in ongoing negotiations. As she made her way through the security checkpoints, Serena could feel the heightened tension among the Bastion personnel. Guards checked and rechecked weapons. Technicians monitored systems with increased vigilance, and command staff exchanged concerned glances as she passed. Commander Marvek met her at the final checkpoint, his expression grave. "Before you go in there, you should know that our thermal imaging shows they were awake all night. They've rearranged the furniture into what appears to be a formal configuration, a circle with cross at the head, and they've dismantled several comfort fixtures." "Dismantled?" Serena asked, immediately concerned. "For weapons?" "Possibly," Marvek conceded. "Though our scans don't show traditional weapon signatures. It could be for materials to construct something else. Either way, I strongly advise against entering alone this time." Serena considered this information carefully. The Phantoms were masters of improvisation, capable of turning the most innocuous objects into lethal tools. But sending in armed guards would signal distrust at this crucial juncture. "I appreciate your concern, Commander. But I must continue as before. Consistency is vital here." She activated her handheld device, reviewing the modified agreement one final time. "However, I would request that your response teams remain at heightened readiness." Marvek nodded grimly. "They already are, at the first sign of trouble." "I understand," Serena interrupted gently. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." The door to Detention Block 13 slid open, and Serena stepped through with the same measured confidence as before. Immediately, she noticed the changes Commander Marvek had described. The Phantoms had indeed rearranged the space. The comfortable seating was now organized in a perfect circle, with Cross's chair slightly elevated at what was clearly designated as the head position. The other assassins sat according to some internal hierarchy that Serena could only partially deduce from their files. More concerning were the dismantled fixtures. Parts of the entertainment systems, portions of the hydroponic garden equipment, and components from the comfort amenities had been repurposed into what appeared to be ceremonial objects. Staffs wrapped with wiring. Small bowls filled with liquids that Serena strongly suspected were not water. And a central space where the flooring had been modified to display an intricate pattern. "Ambassador Vale," Cross greeted, his voice carrying a new gravity. "You return as promised." "I do," Serena replied, taking in the scene with careful observation. "You've been busy, I see." "Necessary preparations," Cross said, gesturing to the empty seat directly across from him. "Please, join our circle." Serena approached cautiously, noting the positioning of each phantom and the peculiar objects they had created. This wasn't simple redecoration. It had meaning, ritual significance. She recognized elements from different cultural traditions, suggesting that the Phantoms had developed their own syncretic practices. As she took the offered seat, she noticed fine powder lines on the floor, creating a complex geometric pattern that encompassed the entire circle. The designs were reminiscent of ancient protection symbols from a dozen different worlds. "We have considered your proposal," Cross stated formally. "It has been subjected to the full consensus of the Shadow." Serena recognized the phrasing from intelligence reports. The Phantom's highest decision-making protocol, rarely invoked and binding on all members. "And what has the consensus determined?" she asked, maintaining the formal tone they had established. Cross leaned forward, his enhanced eye gleaming in the chamber's light. "Before we render our decision, we require something from you. A demonstration of commitment." Tension coiled in Serena's stomach. This was the moment where negotiations often faltered, when abstract agreements faced the test of concrete action. "What kind of demonstration?" "The truth of blood," Vex answered from Serena's right. "Our tradition requires that life-altering pacts be sealed with the mingling of blood between parties." Serena had encountered blood rituals in previous diplomatic missions, primarily among frontier societies and traditional warrior cultures. They were typically symbolic rather than dangerous. But with assassins whose specialty included biochemical weapons, the risk was considerably higher. "I understand the importance of ritual in binding agreements," Serena said carefully. "However, I must be certain about the exact nature of what you're proposing." Terius, the elder Phantom, spoke up. "It is simple. A small cut on the palm. The blood is mixed in the vessel." He indicated one of the improvised bowls. "Each participant consumes a drop. By our traditions, this creates a bond that cannot be broken without consequences to one's very essence." Serena weighed her options quickly. Refusing would likely terminate the negotiation immediately. Agreeing blindly could be dangerous. The Phantoms were known for their expertise with toxins and biological agents. Yet the ritual itself seemed consistent with documented customs from multiple cultures. "I am willing to participate," she said finally, "provided that the process is transparent and mutually observed. Trust must flow both ways." Cross nodded, appearing satisfied with her response. "Agreed." He extended his hand to Vex, who placed a small, improvised cutting tool in his palm. It appeared to be fashioned from a sharpened piece of the hydroponic system's metal framework. With deliberate movements, Cross drew the edge across his own palm first, creating a thin line of crimson. He held his hand over the central bowl, allowing several drops to fall into the clear liquid already present. "Your turn, Ambassador," he said, offering the cutting tool handle first. Serena accepted it, aware of Commander Marvek and his security team, undoubtedly watching with alarm through the observation systems. She examined the edge carefully. It appeared clean, with no visible residue that might indicate poison. With a quick, decisive motion, she drew the edge across her palm, wincing slightly at the sharp sting. She held her hand over the bowl as Cross had done, watching as her blood mingled with his in the clear solution. Vex added a powder from another container, causing the mixture to briefly fizz and then settle into a deep burgundy color. She stirred it with a thin metal rod, then filled 2 small drinking vessels with the mixture. "The words must be spoken," Terius prompted, his weathered voice carrying the weight of tradition. Cross nodded and began to recite in a language Serena recognized as an ancient dialect from the outer colonies. "Blood to blood, life to life, truth to truth. What is promised in the circle cannot be broken without the breaking of self. I, Cross, Shadow Master of the Phantom Collective, bind myself to this covenant." He drank from his vessel, then looked expectantly at Serena. Drawing on her extensive linguistic training, Serena repeated the phrases in the same dialect, substituting her own title. "Blood to blood, life to life, truth to truth. What is promised in the circle cannot be broken without the breaking of self. I, Serena Vale, Ambassador of Humanity, bind myself to this covenant." She raised the vessel to her lips and took the smallest sip possible, while still fulfilling the requirements of the ritual. The liquid tasted metallic and bitter, but not poisonously so. A palpable shift occurred in the room's atmosphere. The phantoms, previously tense and vigilant, seemed to collectively exhale. "The covenant is sealed," Cross declared. "And now, Ambassador Vale, I will give you our answer." He rose from his seat, and the other phantoms followed suit. Serena stood as well, uncertain of what would come next. With fluid, synchronized movements, each phantom reached into their jumpsuit and produced a small object. Serena tensed, preparing for weapons, but instead, they each held what appeared to be identification chips, the core of their combat implants, the technology that made them such lethal assassins. One by one, they approached the central bowl and dropped the chips into the remaining blood mixture. The symbolism was unmistakable. They were surrendering their most precious tools, the technological enhancements that defined their operational capabilities. Cross was the last to approach. His cybernetic eye whirred as he looked down at the gathered chips. "The Phantom Collective accepts your terms, Ambassador Vale. We will provide complete disclosure of all operations, training facilities, and financial networks. In exchange, we expect relocation to Helios 9 as specified, with the guarantees and protections you have outlined." Relief washed through Serena, though she maintained her composed exterior. "The agreement will be honored in full, Shadowmaster Cross. I give you my word, sealed in blood and witnessed by your people." Cross nodded solemnly. "There is one condition we must add." "What condition?" Serena asked cautiously. "The 4 extraction teams preparing to intercept our transfer," Cross said. "They must be neutralized without bloodshed. Many are former associates or trainees who believe they are acting in our best interest. They should not die for their loyalty." Serena considered this request. It was reasonable, and potentially saved more lives, but added complexity to an already complicated operation. "I cannot guarantee 0 casualties if they resist, but I can ensure that non-lethal approaches will be prioritized, and that they will be offered leniency in exchange for standing down." Cross seemed to weigh this modification, then inclined his head. "Acceptable." He turned to address his assembled followers. "Prepare the comprehensive disclosure. Leave nothing hidden." As the phantoms dispersed to begin their work, Cross remained with Serena. "You should inform your commander Marvek that we have reached an agreement. His heart rate has been dangerously elevated since the blood ritual began. I can hear the medical alerts from here." Serena couldn't help but smile slightly. "You know about the implanted monitors." "Of course," Cross replied with a hint of professional pride. "We could have disabled them at any time, but it seemed counterproductive to your efforts." Serena activated her communicator. "Commander Marvek, you can stand down the emergency response. The Phantoms have accepted the terms of the agreement." Marvek's voice came through, tense with disbelief. "Ambassador, what was that ritual? Our medical scanners detected potentially harmful substances in that mixture." "A traditional blood covenant," Serena explained calmly. "Symbolic rather than dangerous. Please have a medical team ready when I exit. But I assure you, the situation is under control." She turned back to Cross. "We should begin the disclosure process immediately. The transfer is scheduled for less than 3 days from now, which doesn't leave much time to implement the alternative arrangements." Cross nodded. "Tarius will coordinate the information transfer. He knows every operation we've conducted for the past 30 years. Every contact, every facility." His mismatched eyes studied her with renewed intensity. "You took a significant risk with the blood ritual. Our medical specialist could have easily introduced toxins." "Yes," Serena acknowledged. "But that would have defeated the purpose of our negotiations. And beyond that, I needed to demonstrate trust if I expected to receive it in return." "A calculated risk," Cross observed. "All diplomacy is," Serena replied. "Just as all combat is calculated risk for assassins like you." For the first time, Something like genuine respect showed in Cross's expression. "Perhaps we are not so different as it might seem, Ambassador Vale. We all make choices based on our understanding of the world," Serena said. "The difference lies in being willing to reconsider that understanding when presented with new information." Cross looked past her to the observation window, where Commander Marvek and his security team were undoubtedly watching their interaction. "Some will never accept this agreement. They've lost too much to the Phantom's operations." "True," Serena conceded. "Healing takes longer than wounding, but it has to start somewhere." She gestured to the circle they had created. "This is that somewhere." Over the next 48 hours, Bastion became the center of a carefully orchestrated operation. The Phantoms, true to their word, provided comprehensive information on their entire network, training facilities hidden on remote worlds, financial backers operating through shell corporations, weapons suppliers, safe houses, and sleeper agents positioned throughout Alliance territory. The intelligence was a counterterrorism goldmine, potentially saving thousands of lives and preventing countless future attacks. Each revelation was carefully verified and cross-referenced, proving the Phantom's commitment to the agreement. Simultaneously, arrangements were made for their relocation. The settlement on Helios 9 was prepared, transportation secured, and consortium oversight established. Everything was conducted with the utmost secrecy to prevent interference from those who might oppose the agreement. Throughout this process, Serena worked tirelessly, coordinating between multiple parties, resolving conflicts, and ensuring that every detail was addressed. Commander Marvek, initially skeptical, gradually shifted to cautious cooperation as the value of the intelligence became apparent. On the final evening before the scheduled transfer, now repurposed as a covert relocation, Serena visited Detention Block 13 one last time. The Phantoms had been allowed to retain their improvised ritual space, though all potential weapons had been removed after the Blood Covenant. Cross sat alone in the center of the circle, his expression contemplative. He looked up as Serena entered. "The preparations are complete," she informed him. "Transport will arrive at 0400 hours. Your people will be moved in groups of 3 to minimize visibility. The official record will state that you were transferred to a classified Alliance facility for extended interrogation." Cross nodded. "And the extraction teams?" "All 4 have been identified and contacted," Serena replied. 3 have agreed to stand down in exchange for amnesty. The 4th required more persuasive measures, but was ultimately contained without casualties. "Impressive work," Cross acknowledged. "Your reputation is well earned, Ambassador." Serena took a seat across from him, noting how different the atmosphere felt from their first encounter. The tension had been replaced by something more complex, not quite trust, but a mutual respect born of recognized capability. "May I ask you something, Cross?" she ventured. When he inclined his head in permission, she continued, "After all the operations, all the assassinations, did you ever question the path you had chosen? Not just tactically, but fundamentally?" Cross was silent for a long moment, his enhanced eye dimming slightly, as if powering down unnecessary scanning functions. "Twice," he finally answered. "The first was after New Damascus, the children in the pediatric ward. That was not supposed to happen. Our intelligence indicated the wing would be empty for renovation." He paused, his expression distant. "I told myself it was an intelligence failure, not a moral one. That, in war, such things happen. But I knew better." "And the second time?" Serena prompted gently. "Yesterday," Cross said, meeting her gaze directly. "When you showed us the projections of what comes next, the endless cycle. I've always told my people that our actions would eventually force systemic change, that the fear we created would compel reform. But your projections showed the opposite. More security, more oppression, more resistance, more bloodshed." He gestured to the circle around them. "This path we're taking now, it's not surrender as I once would have defined it. It's reassessment. Serena nodded, understanding the significant psychological shift this represented. The hardest victories are often the ones we win over ourselves. A diplomatic platitude, Cross observed, though without rancor, but not entirely without merit. The station's communication system activated. Ambassador Vale, Commander Marvek's voice announced. Preliminary transport vessels are approaching. We should begin preparations. Acknowledged, Commander, Serena replied. She rose from her seat, looking down at Cross. It's time. Cross stood as well, his imposing height once again evident. One last question. Ambassador, do you believe this will work? Truly? That assassins can become something else? Serena considered her answer carefully. I believe people can change when given a genuine opportunity and sufficient reason. Your skills don't define you. Your choices do. And starting tomorrow, you'll have new choices to make. Cross seemed to accept this answer. He turned toward the doorway where the other phantoms were now gathering, summoned by the announcement. Then let's begin. The relocation proceeded with the precision one would expect from a high-security operation, managed by professional diplomats and monitored by elite assassins. Each group of phantoms was transferred to the transport vessels under cover of Bastion's regular supply deliveries, their presence masked by careful scheduling and strategic sensor disruptions. Serena oversaw each phase personally, working alongside Commander Marvek, who had transitioned from skeptical opponent to grudging partner in the operation. His experience with security protocols proved invaluable in maintaining the cover story of a classified transfer. By dawn, all 11 Phantoms had been successfully moved to the primary transport vessel. Serena stood in the Bastion's command center, watching as the ship prepared for departure. The consortium escorts are in position, a communications officer reported. Jump coordinates for Helios 9 are locked in. Commander Marvek turned to Serena, his expression a complex mixture of emotions. I still don't know if this is justice. Ambassador. Perhaps not by conventional definitions, Serena acknowledged. But sometimes, justice must be balanced against the prevention of future suffering. The intelligence they've provided will save countless lives. Marvek nodded slowly. The data is even more extensive than we anticipated. Training methodologies, recruitment patterns, financial networks, enough to dismantle similar operations across 3 sectors. And that's the real victory here, Serena said, watching as the transport vessel engaged its engines. Not capturing or punishing the Phantoms, but breaking the cycle they were part of. The ship accelerated smoothly away from Bastion, its escort vessels moving into protective formation around it. In moments, they would reach jump distance and disappear into hyperspace, bound for a remote world beyond Alliance jurisdiction. What will you tell the families? Marvek asked quietly. The people who lost loved ones to the Phantoms, will they ever know what really happened here? Serena sighed, feeling the weight of that question. Someday, perhaps, when enough time has passed that the agreement isn't at risk. For now, they'll be told what everyone else is told, that justice was served through official channels. A diplomatic lie, Marvek observed. A necessary one, Serena corrected gently. Until people are ready for a more complicated truth. The vessels reached jump distance, their engines flaring as they prepared to enter hyperspace. One by one, they disappeared in flashes of light, until only the primary transport remained momentarily visible, hovering at the threshold of departure. Serena's communicator activated, and to her surprise, Cross's voice came through. Ambassador Vale, the Blood Covenant holds. What was promised will be honored. Safe journey, Shadowmaster, Serena replied formally. May your new beginning bring what the old path could not. The transport flashed brilliantly as it entered hyperspace, leaving nothing but empty space where the deadliest assassins in the Alliance had been moments before. Commander Marvek exhaled slowly. It's done. Yes, Serena agreed, though she knew that in many ways, the work was just beginning. The intelligence would need to be acted upon, the cover story maintained, the settlement on Helios 9 monitored to ensure compliance with the agreement. Diplomatic victories were rarely as definitive as military ones. "What will you do now, Ambassador?" Marvek asked, as they left the command center. Serena smiled slightly. "There's a border dispute in the Tau Ceti system that's been simmering for months. Not as dramatic as negotiating with assassins, but important nonetheless. After what you've accomplished here, that should be relatively straightforward," Marvek observed. "That's the thing about diplomacy, Commander," Serena replied. "It's never straightforward. Each conflict has its own unique challenges, its own deeply held beliefs and fears to navigate." She paused at a viewport, looking out at the burnt orange sky of Draven 9. "But the principles remain the same. Find the human connection, even when it seems impossible, especially then." Marvek studied her with newfound respect. "You walked into a room of killers without weapons or protection, and walked out with their surrender. I've never seen anything like it." "Not surrender," Serena corrected. "Transformation. That's the difference. In surrender, something is lost. In transformation, something is gained by all parties." Her shuttle was waiting at the docking bay, prepared for her return journey. As she boarded, Serena felt the familiar mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction that followed a successful negotiation. Lives had been saved, not just those who would have died in a failed transfer operation, but countless others who would have been targets of future phantom operations or casualties in the ongoing cycle of violence. As the shuttle pulled away from Bastion, Serena activated her secure communicator one final time, recording the official conclusion of Operation Watershed. "The Phantom Collective has been successfully relocated according to the terms of the agreement. All members complied fully with intelligence disclosure requirements. Initial assessment indicates information of exceptional value for counterterrorism operations. Recommend immediate implementation of containment protocols for exposed networks and facilities." She paused, considering whether to include a personal assessment, then continued. "Of particular note is the psychological transformation observed in Key Subject Cross. What began as a pragmatic negotiation evolved into a genuine reassessment of long-held ideological positions. This suggests potential for similar approaches with other extremist factions, provided sufficient incentive and appropriate guarantees." The shuttle entered Draven 9's upper atmosphere, the station falling away behind her. Ahead lay the next mission, the next seemingly intractable conflict awaiting resolution. Final recommendation: establish monitoring protocols for Helios 9 settlement to verify continued compliance, but minimize intrusive oversight to allow for authentic integration. The success of this operation should not be measured solely by the intelligence gained, but by the potential transformation of former adversaries into partners in a more stable future. Serena deactivated the communicator and leaned back in her seat, allowing herself a moment of reflection. In her career, she had negotiated peace treaties, prevented wars, and resolved centuries-old conflicts. But never had she attempted something quite like this, to transform those dedicated to destruction into potential forces for protection and stability. Would it work? Only time would tell. But she had seen something in Cross's eyes during their final conversation. A glimpse of possibility, of a future different from the blood-soaked past that had defined him. Sometimes, that glimpse was all you needed to begin. The shuttle broke through the clouds of Draven 9, ascending toward the stars, and whatever challenges awaited beyond. Serena Vale, ambassador of humanity, unarmed but never defenseless, prepared herself for the next impossible task. After all, the hardest battles were often won with words, not weapons, and she had always preferred the more difficult path.